Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist. I own 52 units of real estate, and I help coach people to buy their first multifamily deal. So today I want to talk about all the failures that I've been through on my journey to a $6.2 million net worth. So my journey started in 2013 when I graduated from pharmacy school with $250,000 of student debt. So I actually started off with a negative $250,000 net worth. And fast forward 12 years later, my net worth is about $6.2 million. So I made a swing of about $6.5 million in 12 years while working as a full-time pharmacist. And there were a lot of bumps along the way, which I want to share, and how I kind of overcame that and how it kind of shaped who I am today. So, my biggest blunder, I would say, or failure out the gate was, and I have a video talking about it. It's my best producing video, talking about how I got fired from Walgreens. So I literally graduated from University of Pacific in May of 2023, and I got offered a graduate intern position at Walgreens. So it's kind of a training system. They put you in to train you so that when you become a pharmacist, you are then placed into a store, or maybe you'll float around to different stores. So I don't want to go into too much detail about it, but I was basically placed in a store that had a more toxic work culture. The manager ruled with fear, and it just wasn't the best environment for me. I'm a little bit unique myself, so I think it goes both ways. Probably I had something to pitch to that, because I'm very direct, very blunt. I'm very I'm very transparent, for better or for worse, as you can tell. So obviously when you're too transparent, it can burn you and bite you in the ass. Right? So I think it was a combination of me being that way, in combination of a more toxic work environment where they led with fear, environment where they were bullying kind of the new people. So, make that a perfect storm. I basically got fired from Walgreens the day I became licensed as a pharmacist in around September. So, for me, it was a huge failure out the gate. I poured 5 years out of high school to becoming a pharmacist, and when I was working at Walgreens, I was miserable. I hated my life. I hated dealing with insurance. I hated dealing with angry customers when you have to explain why your copay is $5 higher. You have a drive-through window and people are knocking on the window. It's just a very unfulfilling profession, and didn't use anything clinical that I learned. And I was just like, oh shit, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So, got fired. In hindsight, it's a blessing in disguise. It forced me to get out of the retail chain pharmacy like Walgreens, CVS. Honestly, everyone I know that works in CVS, Walgreens, they don't enjoy their job. They're just doing it because they don't want to work in the hospital. But for me, it pushed me to going to the hospital. And from there, I've really climbed up the ladder from pharmacist at a hospital to pharmacy director to a regional pharmacy director. And, really got to utilize my clinical skills, got to learn how to operate a hospital pharmacy, which is a lot more complicated compared to like a Walgreens pharmacy or CVS pharmacy. So because of this operational skill that I developed, it translated nicely into real estate, right? Which is a large part of my journey, with 52 units today. And so really appreciate that, because in my mind, operating a hospital is much harder than operating a real estate portfolio, because in a hospital, it's life or death. I have 2 to 5 minutes to make a decision that's life or death. But in a house, for the most part, it's not life or death. For the day-to-day stuff, obviously if a house is on fire or there's an earthquake or something, it could happen. But, it's not like if I delay 5 minutes, nothing's going to happen, right? Like if the house is on fire, well, as long as everyone's out safely, that's all that matters, right? They deal with the rest later. But in healthcare, it's really life or death, and you have minutes to decide, right? If someone's having a stroke and you have to decide which medication to give, every minute that you delay, the patient's brain is dying, right? So, to me, operating a hospital is a lot more harder compared to operating like a real estate portfolio. So it gave me that frame of reference that real estate's easier than a hospital. So really grateful for that. So thanks to me getting fired at Walgreens, it shifted me in a profession where I was working in a hospital setting. And my first job was Memorial Hospital, all the way in King City. I was the only Asian person in King City, probably, at the time, back in 2013. Interesting, I drove a BMW at the time, and it was my dream car. and no one drives a BMW in King City. So when my car stood out, it got egged during, I think, senior graduation week, because obviously it's the only BMW in King City, right? It's a small town, and when you stick out too much, you get hated on, right? So got my BMW egged, and it was very humbling. So after that accident, pun intended, I started like rotating with my older like Camry. Like my mom had an older Camry, so I'd like rotate my BMW and my Camry, and I made sure to park in the garage. But yeah, that's kind of a foreshadowing of life, right? As you become more wealthy, as you become more successful, people are going to throw eggs at you, right? So I've experienced that when I was in King City driving a BMW. I experienced that when I became a pharmacy director. I experienced that as I built a real estate portfolio of 90 units at one point. I experienced that as I started sharing my journey on YouTube, right? So the more successful you become, the more people will shit on you, right? So sorry, that was a huge side tangent, but that comes with the success. So for me, if people are shitting on me, I know I'm becoming more successful. So if people are shitting on you, it's a sign that you're becoming more successful and you're starting to become an outlier. You're starting to become a black sheep, right? So kind of something I learned through my journey. So anyways, back to Walgreens, got fired from Walgreens, forced me to go to the hospital setting where I met my first mentor, who mentored me to wanting to become in a pharmacy leader position at a hospital, which led me to become a pharmacy director at a hospital. And from there, learned operations, which translated into real estate, right? So things happen for a reason, right? One door closes, another door opens. Prime example. So I'm so grateful that Walgreens fired my ass, right? I'm so grateful my ass got fired, right? I learned a lot from that. And by getting fired, it really made me appreciate my W-2 job. So when I took my next job at King City, I really took it seriously. They gave me the opportunity to learn. It was a nice schedule. It was Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30 a.m. I had a great mentor named Fred, who was a pharmacy director for 30 years. So I learned a lot from him. The mentorship model still works. And I was always trying to pick his brain and his knowledge and his mindset. And, so it was nice, right? Like, and older white males like to talk, right? So, and I like to listen. So it was a match made in heaven. So I met him, and, from there decided to do my master's public health degree at UC Berkeley to do leadership, and just really was hungry to improve and do better. So after working there for about a year and a half, I got a job at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center as a inpatient pharmacist, and I basically started from the bottom. So I was working graveyard shifts, work whatever shifts was available. It was AM, PM, graveyard, whatever. I just did it. I didn't care. I was also grateful for the opportunity because I got fired from Walgreens. So I was just so appreciative of working in the hospital. I was so appreciative of just being able to have a higher paying job than I think Walgreens paid me like $63 an hour, and at this hospital I was starting at $70 bucks an hour, and I'm doing a lot more fulfilling work, right? And I had pension, I had great benefits, so I was super grateful, right, for that. So like I said, if I never got fired, this opportunity may have never came or pushed me to go in that route. So from there, I kind of during my financial journey, so in 2013 when I got fired, the day I think I got fired, I think I just closed on my refinance on my student loans. So I had $250K student debt at 7-8% interest on average, I think. And I refinanced it to I think 4% at the time. And from there, I basically remember I closed on the loan. The next day I got fired, and I was like, oh, thank God I at least closed on the loan first, because then they check to make sure you have a W-2 when you close on the loan, right? But once again, things happen for a reason. But able to close on that loan, and then after that, I basically lived like a dirt poor pharmacy student, college student for 4 years. I just rented a room for $500 in King City. Took whatever money I had to dump at my student loans after having I think $5,000 to $10,000 as emergency reserve. And then when I got my job at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center, I was fortunate enough to live at home for free, and whatever money I would have spent on rent, I threw at my student loans. So I ended up paying off my student loans in 4 years, right? So while at my time at King City, my mentor, he kind of was dabbling in stocks and more day trading, is more gambling now that I look back. But at least it kind of got me thinking about stocks. It got me thinking about investments. At that time I bought Apple stocks, about $10,000 worth of Apple stock, which has done well. And I bought $2,000 of Tesla stock, which I thought I sold it for double, but if I kept that from 2013 to today, I would have done a lot better, right? But who knows, right? It was just gambling. But from that experience, I started like day trading stocks a little bit, thinking I was investing, but I was really gambling. And I remember I bought GoPro stocks after it went IPO for like, was it 45 or 90 bucks a share, which I thought was a deal because it was half off, but then I ended up losing like half my money on that deal. And then I bought another like 3D printing company and some like Chinese index fund recommended through like the Motley Fool, which is an article. So like from that, I learned like, wait, I'm like reading these articles from like these supposed experts and I'm losing money. So at that point, I was just like, you know what, this is stupid. Let me just buy the S&P 500 because it's so much easier. So thanks to me day trading stocks for a little bit, losing like probably $4,000 or $5,000, I just learned that, you know what, Steven, I'm not fucking smart enough to like know stocks. I don't want to study stocks. I just want to buy stuff that's like easy to understand. It grows up over time. So I just bought S&P 500 stocks, and then like I bought Apple stocks because like I just like, well, everyone loves the iPhone, everyone loves the MacBook, they're so loyal. I don't own one myself personally, but like everyone else, it's so ironic. I never owned an iPhone my entire life, a MacBook my entire life, but I own like $100,000 plus of like Apple stocks, right? Because the fan base is so loyal that people continuously always upgrade to iPhones, upgrade their MacBooks, AirPods, whatever, right? Such a loyal. So I like the business fundamentals, but I myself don't own an iPhone. It's weird. So I just learned that like, so now I literally just buy index funds, the total US stock market index funds, the international market index fund, the total bond market through Vanguard. My split is 75% total US. I think 70% total US, 25% total international minus US, and then 5% in bonds. And then occasionally, if I have a lump sum of money, I might just dump like $10,000 into Apple stocks, right? So that's literally my whole investment strategy. And I learned this because I lost like $5,000 day trading stocks. I lost money on GoPro. I lost money on this 3D printing company. I lost money on China stocks. And I remember my dad told me about the 3D company, and I was just like, man, like this is all just gambling, right? So thanks to that experience, thanks to that failure of losing $5,000 or whatever, I learned to like, you know what, just buy index funds. It's super easy, right? And that's what I've been doing today. And just by literally buying index funds and Apple stocks, my stock portfolio is about $1.2 million today, right? So thanks to those failures and like, wait, like these people are supposed to know better than me, and they don't even know, right? So after that, I don't trust any day trading. That's just gambling to me now. So just buy index funds, dollar cost average, and then I just will continue to buy Apple stocks periodically if I have extra cash. So another failure that led to something else. Another failure that I kind of had was starting in 2017. So this is when I got my first house. So actually, I want to take a step back before that. So from 2013 to 2017, like I look back and I just wonder, like, man, instead of paying off $250,000 of student debt at 4% interest, I could have taken that $250,000 and bought some real estate, right? I could have bought real estate in like maybe 2015 versus 17, and I would have been able to buy another house. It might have been like, instead of buying for $800,000 for average purchase price, it might have been like $700,000, and I would have made more money. So like I always wonder, like, man, like I wish instead of paying off my student debt, I would have bought real estate instead. But my mindset back then was, I felt like the student debt was so crippling for me, and I think it is for a lot of people today. And just being able to like not to pay off my student debt, having the discipline of paying it off in 4 years, like $250K in 4 years, I think it taught me a lot more principles than if I just were to buy a piece of real estate. And because I was able to save, pay off $250K in 4 years, it just took me another year and a half to save for my next down payment anyways. But I just look back and be like, damn, I could have bought real estate in 2015, could have put a house 10% down, and I could have bought my second house in 2017, right? And then the appreciation would have, like, in retrospect, each year houses went up by 80K. So in 2 years, I would have made 160K of equity. I could have sold it as a primary residence, take that money tax-free and pay off my student loans and be at the same position, right? But hindsight's 2020, and things happen for a reason. So I don't regret it, but is it a lesson? Yeah, it could be. But like I said, there is some type of peace of mind. There's some type of alleviation. Like I felt like life couldn't move on until I paid off my student debt, and once I did, that's when I pivoted to real estate, right? So like I said, things happen for a reason, and it's part of my journey. And what I listed as a failure, I would give that a 50%, right? It's very impressive to pay off $250K in 4 years. But on top of that, the principles I learned from paying off that student debt, I think is going to compound over for the rest of my life. So that's why I say 50%, right? And who would have known real estate would appreciate that much in 2 years, right? Hindsight's always 2020. So my next failure happened in 2017 when I bought my first house in Livermore, California. And I remember when I took over the house, I had a home warranty that the seller gave me. And I had I had like a leak issue where the maid, we were cleaning the bathtub. So we had a maid clean the whole house, do a deep clean. And she turned on the bathtub, and then like we saw a leak in the front of the house, like above the garage. And it was a small leak, and I was just like, oh shit. So like we kind of panicked and we called a plumber, and then he like upcharged us like hell. Like he charged us like, I think $5,000 for like a simple fix, right? Because when they know you're desperate, when they know you're stressed, they can take advantage of the situation and the timing, right? So we didn't know any better, so we just paid for it. I was able to negotiate some credit from my real estate agent, so I used that to go pay the $4,000. But in hindsight, I literally just could have submitted a request to my home warranty company, and it would have just paid a $70 trade call fee, and they would have fixed that plumbing issue and saved me $4,000. So what that kind of taught me was that this is my first house, right? And I think I was obviously everything's emotional. You're scared, you're freaking out. And, in retrospect, there wasn't an urgent leak. I mean, it was leaking like onto the driveway, and it was a small, like little drip, right? And I guess the prior owner knew about it, but, they don't have to disclose everything, and it was missed during the inspection. So, kudos, welcome to real estate, right? It cost of doing business. And I remember just thinking like, wow, like, I spent $4,000. I wasted my money. It's a stupid tax. That's 1 month mortgage. But hey, at least I learned something, and now I know, like, don't freak out when something happens. And fast forward today, like, shit like this happens to me every day. I own 52 units of real estate, right? So you just have to learn from it and then problem solve it, and then you kind of know how much things cost, and then you gotta know if it's urgent or not. So obviously it was like a huge leak in my living room. That's super urgent. But if it's just leaking like onto the driveway outside, like that's not that urgent. And it was like a small drip too, like nothing significant. So learned the value of using the home warranty, and made some requests. So you live and learn, right? Another failure I had was I screened a tenant, and it was the first tenant that I had for house hacking. And, he was a great guy, spoke well, communicated well, seemed friendly, seemed good natured, right? Like, you kind of see how I got tricked, but like, I screened him. I talked to him on the phone. He worked at, as a manager for like a fast food chain. And he, showed me his bank statement. It checked out. He had like, I think the rent I wanted was like $900 a month, and he had like at least $4,000 in the bank. So that checked out. His credit score was decent. He showed me pay stubs. He so everything kind of checked out to me. And, he first 2 months he paid on time, and after that, like every month, like he'd pay me randomly, but then he'd always pay the late fee, right? It was like a $50 late fee. So he'd always like pay me randomly, and he just would put the money randomly. Like he would just put it like randomly on my coffee table 1 month, randomly on the kitchen table 1 month, randomly like under my door 1 month, randomly like, I don't know, it just would be vary every month, but he'd always give like an additional $50. So I didn't really think too much about it. But one time, he like got fired from his job or whatever, and then said that, like the new direct deposit doesn't work, like I'll be a little bit late, can I use my security deposit to pay this? I was like, all right, you're good. I'm very trusting. That's the downside if you live with your tenants. Like you become more trusting because they almost kind of like become like your friends, your roommate, right? And then you kind of get a little bit more lax versus like if I'm like managing one of my remote properties today, like it's easy for me to like just, hey, enforce the contract. If you're late, if you're beyond the fifth, you're going to pay a $50 late fee, right? Every time. It's like pretty simple. It's pretty easy. So I got lax with that, and, he started getting later and later. And then all of a sudden one day, when I went, on a trip to Hawaii, unfortunately my mom had a big stroke, which ended up making her pass. But I went there, and then I came back, and then he basically like ran away from the property, right? But fortunately he didn't like trash the room. He didn't trash the house. he just like left the key on the dresser. Everything was empty. And I remember calling the other roommates like, hey, have you seen this guy in a while? And they're like, no, we actually haven't. And I'm like, dude, can you just like open his room and see if anything's in there? And then so one roommate opened it. He's like, oh my God, like it's empty. Like he ran. And then one of their roommates was like, yeah, I remember one day he was just like hurrying to pack, and I remember seeing him carrying like a bag, and he didn't really say anything, but he just like kind of like left fast. Right. So, and he had no cell phone. He only had an email to contact him with. So, I think he was going through tough times or whatever between his job. He kept on getting fired. He had medical issues, and maybe he had a slight gambling addiction in retrospect. So, maybe this is just his MO, and I had no security deposit, basically lost like I think 2 months of rent he didn't pay me, which is $2,000. But hey, once again, this is the opportunity cost of doing real estate, right? So this is going to happen to you, right? When you have tenants that don't pay, they're going to milk the system. They're going to not pay for 6 months. They're going to trash the property. And it happened too in my apartment, my 20 unit. I had a tenant take some drugs, and they got Sharpies and got high and wrote Sharpie art all over the wall. And then it cost me like $500 to repaint everything, but their security deposit was $300. So I had to come $300 out of pocket. So this just kind of taught me that this is the cost of doing business, right? When you're in the business of real estate and managing people, you're gonna have tenants that don't pay. They're gonna trash your property, and then you're gonna end up using more money to fix it up. But overall net, I think real estate makes me money, right? Because there's a natural market appreciation over time. Like yes, it sucks I didn't get $2,000 in rent, or I lost $2,000 in rent, right? But he could have easily trashed the bathroom. He could have trashed the kitchen. He could have trashed his bedroom, which would have cost me tens of thousands of dollars, right? And but overall, like this property I bought for $800,000 today, it's worth about $1.4 million. That's $600,000 of appreciation. I have had like $200,000 or $100,000 of principal pay down. I still get rent every single month. It's a tax write-off for passive losses. So like, overall net, would I trade giving up, let's say a couple $1,000s to make $700,000, I think I would, right? And that's just the cost of doing business and the cost of having stupid tax. So like I said, you always have to enforce your lease, and once you get lenient, you give an inch, people take a mile, right? But it doesn't matter what industry you're in, whether I was in single family homes, people try to cheat, try to milk the system. Whether you're owning apartments, tenants have milked the system, right? They trash things, and you have to pay for it and evict them. My mobile home park had, Big Mama, where she wouldn't pay, and if she didn't pay, no one else would pay, right? If she paid, everyone would pay. So they follow her lead, right? Because she's the inaugural leader of the mobile home park. So, that's really what it is, right? So like, thanks to this failure and learning from it, it helped me scale into more real estate, and then helped me to be better, right? So, and then by house hacking, when you house hack a property, you live there, like the tenants don't treat it nicely. They treat it like a hotel, right? So you're constantly having to clean up after the tenants. They might not wash the dishes, right? Or they may not put the dishes in the dishwasher. They may leave the trash there. You have to put the trash in the trash can and take it out. They may afraid to turn off the lights. They don't care. They might turn on the heater, the AC, and then, do all this. So like, they treat it like a hotel. They don't treat it obviously as you. So you're kind of stuck being the maid and cleaning up after them. And what I started doing was I just said, hey, you know what? We're just going to hire a maid every month, and we'll split the cost. But that might piss off some tenants too, because they don't want to pay the additional cost. Like, hey, I'm clean. Why do I have to pay for this? Right? So, I just make it clear up front, like, hey, if you move in, we're going to pay maid every month. They're going to clean the bathroom, clean the kitchen, clean everything, and make it look nice and clean. Right? So, secure your valuables. So that's another kind of mistake I had. So now that I kind of go into 2021 was kind of my next biggest mistake. So there's another mistake that might be controversial. So in 2020, I moved from San Francisco to Orange County to chase Christine, who's now my fiance. And I took a $40,000 pay cut. Number one. Number two is I went from house hacking a duplex I own in San Francisco to renting an apartment. So now I'm making $4,000 less. I'm paying like $2,200 in rent, and I ended up getting laid off from that job, right? So to chase a girl. And, I look back and I was like, man, was it a failure? And I think for me, it was something that I need to do. Like, I think I would regret not trying to chase Christine, for lack of a better word. And then I really wanted to change the scenery. I think that was the point where it was like after my mom passed like July of 2019. And, in the start of 2020, that's when COVID happened. I remember on my 30th birthday, that's when California shut down. and I couldn't do anything. So I think for me, it was just really nice to have a change of scenery. And by me moving from San Francisco to LA or Orange County, I think it really expanded my horizons. That's when I became more entrepreneurial. That's when I started looking into like multifamily real estate, into laundromats, into other businesses, because once I left my comfort zone, it forced me to grow and develop as a person, right? And I felt like I needed that, right? Like for me, it was kind of a weird calling. And like I said, worst case, I figured if I went to Orange County, tried to chase Christine, didn't work out, I can always move back to the Bay Area where I'm from, right? And I can always find a job there. It's easy to find a job, and I can find a job that pays a lot, right? So to me, I was like, I would regret not trying. So I didn't mind taking the pay cut. I didn't mind having to pay rent. And it was nice to have my own apartment because I had my own privacy. I could listen to podcasts. And that's when I became more entrepreneurial. Started listening to more podcasts, educating myself about being entrepreneurial, right? So, so that was kind of, I don't know if it was failure, but I'm glad I took the risk. And obviously it worked out because now I'm going to be married to Christine shortly. And, she's helped me, build up my wealth over time too, through mindset and then for guys, when you're not busy chasing girls and using all your mental energy chasing girls, you focus on other things, right? So before I was using all my mental time and energy chasing girls, but now it was chasing, financial freedom, right? So my target became different. So in 2021, as I alluded to, I got laid off from my job. You have a video talking about it. It's probably my second best video, talking about how I remember I came in one day, was eating my breakfast, got called into HR. My director was there, got laid off after 7 months. They just gave me my final check, asked me how I felt, and then I got laid off. And I remember I was sitting there and my identity was shattered. Like you said, I really poured a lot into being a good pharmacist after getting fired from Walgreens. And, I thought I did everything right, got laid off. And, when you get laid off, it's really throwing darts at a board. I was a new guy. I was more paid than the other manager. Name any reason, I got laid off, right? Maybe he didn't like me, right? Whatever. Just got laid off, right? So from that, I was like I remember that was really shocking to me. I was really embarrassed to even tell my dad. My mom passed at the time, so I didn't have an outlet to talk to. And I remember I was afraid to tell my dad because I know he would tell me I told you so. Why did you give up your high salary in San Francisco, move to Orange County, pay rent just to get laid off, right? So for me, I was so embarrassed that I remember I was just sitting there for 2 weeks, just binge watching Netflix and anime and kind of really feeling sorry for myself. But, at the same time, looking for jobs too. But I think for me, it was just wow. And then, at the time though, in 2021, I had 4 rental properties at the time. I joined my multifamily mentorship program at the time, and I was starting to send out mailers in March. No, I got laid off in February, and then the month after March, I started sending out my mailers. So I remember I just started learning a lot, and then applying for jobs, trying to see what bites and see what opportunities I have. I remember I was doing my taxes at that time because it was February, and I remember just trying to stay active, work out, and I remember I was wow, at that moment I was I need to really diversify my streams of income, right? And that's when I really it solidified why I should do multifamily real estate for me, right? Because single family was great. It doesn't cash flow as much, does great in appreciation, but I wanted more cash flow. I wanted more scalability, and I thought multifamily was the way to go, right? Because I can buy something out of state, in Oklahoma, for example, where it's $500,000. I had 26 units paying me $700 a month, which is $16K gross. And, this one actually cash flow, right? Because the purchase price is less, you get more rental income, and it's a little more secure because if I have 26 units paying me rent and maybe 3 don't pay me, I still have 23 units paying me, right? So I kind of like that stability. I like the security of that. So it was really appealing to me to do that. So, from there, in 2021, I scaled massively. In August, I closed on my 26 unit. In November, I closed on my mobile home park. And then in early 2022, May of 2022, I closed on my 20 unit. So during this window, after getting laid off, I scaled significantly, right? I ended up getting another job in Long Beach. But I remember at that job in Long Beach, I didn't take it as seriously because it was a COVID surge hospital. I knew it was going to close down eventually. So I was just buying time for me to buy real estate. And this is when I really deep dived. I bought 80 units in 8 months. And then I started my independent pharmacy business. I started an Amazon dropshipping store through Ryan Panetta's Lunar Ecom. And I have a lot of failures from this, right? So I did a huge cash out refinance, have a negative cash flow real estate property now, single family home. And then, which is a regret now, right? Because now it's negative cash flow. So I have to feed it $2 $2,500 a month. But honestly, my cash flow from my apartments are covering it. So it's kind of a wash in a sense. But now, like, it's not scalable to have a bunch of cash flow negative real estate, right? Like, it's just not good fundamentals. You want to at least break even or put a large down payment so you don't have to be negative in cash flow. So another thing I did was, obviously I had shiny object syndrome. So this is my huge failure. I thought I was better than my W-2 job. I thought I was better than pharmacy. I was like, oh, I'm so cool. I'm going to buy Lunar Ecom, drop $30,000. It's an Amazon drop shipping store. I'm going to make $5,000 to $10,000 a month, easy, passively. And that can replace half my pharmacist income or my entire pharmacist income if it's $10,000 a month, right? But, as fast as I thought of that dream, my Walmart store that I bought through Lunar Ecom got closed down. They opened me a Amazon store. Wasn't doing well. I was losing money. They gave me a Facebook store. Got my Facebook account banned. Complete failure. Lost $30,000 very fast. Right? So, from that lesson, stay in your lane. Do what you know best and do what you have an unfair advantage in. I didn't know shit about Lunar Ecom, about e-commerce. So the only person that made money from that was Ryan Pineda. Right? I lost money. He made money, or broke even. Whatever. And then my pharmacy business, I thought, well, I'm a pharmacist. I know pharmacy. Well, number one, pharmacy is such a capital intensive business. So it's hard to start up. Number two, it's hard to make money, right? Like, pharmacies are a dying business now, right? Like, Walgreens are closing, CVS are closing. So for when you own your own independent pharmacy, you kind of have to it's a little bit shady, but you have to give some kickback to doctors' offices for them to send their patients over to you, and hopefully they have prescriptions that you make money on, right? And then you have to offer free delivery. So I didn't like that business model. It was too shady, not scalable, lost money, wasted my time. Partnership didn't work out. So I ended up just losing my initial, $35,000 seed money. Ended up getting, tax loss harvests from this because I'm an owner on paper. So I might have got my money back and broke even on this. So it's a wash, but I learned from this that, I don't like partners. Number one. Number two is that I don't like capital intensive businesses like pharmacy. You have to have inventory of drugs, rent. You have to pay a pharmacist, to pay a tech. Don't like. So from this, I learned that I don't want high overhead businesses, which is why I like social media, which is why I like coaching, because I don't have overhead. I don't pay rent. I just live at home. I coach virtually. For social media, I use my cell phone to record. This mic here is like $50, and you just post online for free, right? So whatever money I do make, while it's not much, it's all profit, right? If I do coaching, it's all profit. So from my pharmacy business and from my e-commerce business, I learned that, stay in your lane, do what works best for you. So for me, it's just buying real estate, right? Specifically single family homes in California, single family homes in Huntsville, Alabama, and apartments in Oklahoma. That's it. Don't do anything else, right? And then for business wise, I'm just do something that's scalable, low overhead costs, and high profit margins. And coaching is that, social media is that, right? I don't pay an editor. I don't pay anything. I just create content on a phone I already own using the internet I already pay for, right? And then a mic's inexpensive, and coaching, like you said, it's high profit margin. So, great for me. So that's why I learned, but I just have to be patient with this, right? So I'm hoping this will replace my W-2 income, right? And then my mobile home park. So I learned from my mobile home park that property management makes or breaks a deal. So I had a bad on-site property manager. I had a bad off-site property manager. It was in a bad area. It was too capital intensive. It was too complicated. Sold it for $100,000 loss. So, from this, I learned that number one, I put $500,000 into a bad area. Didn't fix the bad area. No amount of money can fix a bad area. Number one. Number two is mobile home parks are too labor intensive and not scalable. And it's too complex. Mobile home parks are 10 times more complex than apartment complexes, right? Because you have to buy a home, you gotta get the home shipped to you, get it installed, get the utilities set up, skirt the home, rent out the home, sell the home, right? Whereas apartment is you just fix up the unit one time, right? And then you just rent it out. And if the person leaves, you make the unit rent ready and then rent it out. Simple, right? Mobile home was way more complicated. So for me, from the mobile home, I learned simple scales, fancy fails, right? And from the mobile home, I sold it for a loss, and I was just forget it. I just want to stick to apartments in Oklahoma, new construction, Huntsville, Alabama, and single family in turnkey properties in California, right? That's it. So that's what I learned from now. And then, obviously, from that 80 units in 8 months, I burnt myself out. I hit depression, I had anxiety. So what I learned was that don't overburden yourself. slow and steady wins the race. You don't have to sprint, right? You can't sprint forever. So now, like, I'm never gonna buy like 3 value add deals at one time. I'm just gonna buy one deal, like one apartment complex. Let's say I buy a 40 unit apartment complex. I'm just gonna wait until it's done. So I'm gonna renovate everything. I'm gonna wait until it's stabilized, until it's all rented out, and once it's done, then I'll buy another deal, right? So it's just one at a time, because if you're trying to chase like if you're trying to manage and renovate 3 properties, you're gonna drop the ball on a lot of things. And I definitely dropped the ball on a lot of things that probably cost me $100,000, right? And versus if I just had to focus on one thing, it's easier to focus on one thing, right? Because I didn't know, like, oh, renovation went over budget on my mobile park, it went over budget on my 20 unit, went over budget on my 26 unit, right? But if I'm just focused on one thing, it's easier to focus and less stressful and more scalable. So now I know if I buy an apartment complex, I'm only gonna buy one every like 2 or 3 years, because it's gonna take me about 2 or 3 years to stabilize it. And in the interim, if I have extra money and additional cash flow, I'm just gonna buy new construction in Huntsville, Alabama, because that doesn't require much effort, right? Or just dump it into index funds if I want more stability. So if I'm doing something that's more hands-on, requires more attention, then everything else that I'm doing around it isn't gonna be more passive, right? So like I said, if I'm doing a value add 40 unit apartment complex, then I'm only gonna invest in index funds or new construction on the side. That's it, right? And I'm probably not gonna start anything new in terms of business, just focus on that, right? But if I'm just buying, let's say, turnkey rentals and I'm busy in my business, then it just balances. So only one thing can be really active, the rest has to be more passive, right? So that's what I learned from that on my mobile home park. So I think overall net, I would say I probably lost like $300,000 from all these mistakes and opportunity costs over time, probably even more, maybe like $500,000. But thanks to that, I was able to make like over like $5 million in real estate, right? Or built up a $6 million net worth. So would you trade like $500,000 in losses potentially, including opportunity costs of time, to make, $6 million net worth? I think the trade-off is yes. So, hopefully I can mitigate a lot of your mistakes by learning to my journey. And just know that, I failed a lot along the way, right? Like I'm not perfect. I know I talk about my successes a lot, but I want to share a lot of my failures and how each failure that I had in this like long video, it led to something better, right? It led to something better. It gave me clarity. It changed my mindset so that I'm better for the future, and I'm gonna continue to fail, right? And then from that, I'm gonna learn from it, right? So the key is to learn from your failures. If you're smart and if you're wise, you want to learn from other people's failure. So I hope that you guys are wise and that you're learning from my mistakes and my failure, right? That's really the point of me sharing my journey. So hopefully you learned a lot from my failures to my path to $6.2 million net worth, to my path to 52 units of real estate, and to my path as a high income W2, right? Because I've done everything wrong. As you can see, I got fired, I got laid off, I lost money, had bad partners, all the above, right? So anyways, let me know if you have any questions. Love to see your questions in the comments. If you want to join my mentorship program with one-on-one coaching, check the link down below. I have a discount going on right now for about a month. So please lock that in if you're interested. Otherwise, please like, comment, subscribe. I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you so much.